the Distinguished International Crisis Group.
An official from the International Crisis Group,
think tank, the International Crisis Group.
The latest report by the International Crisis Group warns that
the International Crisis Group, that's a non-profit organization working to prevent and resolve deadly conflict.
The core business of the International Crisis Group is conflict prevention, conflict resolution, telling governments what they don't want to hear, getting them to do things they don't want to do. What makes Crisis Group really distinctive, I think, is the kind of advocacy we do. It's the very direct face-to-face contact with high-level decision makers and those who influence them. We really are, I think, capable of talking to the people that matter in a language that they understand and with a professionalism that they respect.
The ICG benefits from being independent.
It's an effective organization because it's focused on real problems.
This organization can put people on the ground who really are experts. They speak the language, they embed, they extract from the local situation, and it's packaged, formatted, and presented in a way that makes it adaptable by policymakers.
The International Crisis Group was really born out of some terrible failures by the international community to anticipate the catastrophic violence that occurred in the Balkans and in Rwanda in particular in the mid-90s, and then to do anything really decent about it.
The fact that the West has allowed this slaughter to begin and continue for 4 years was a disgrace. Could a private organization work so as to help countries or accelerate the response of countries to these situations of mass conflict?
I think it was partly the very good and accurate work that we were doing, and partly also a growing recognition that the international community's model for Bosnia was not working, was being unsuccessful, that made us really very effective indeed on the ground.
The bedrock of Crisis Group's credibility is the quality of our analysts on the ground. We don't just sit behind computers in Brussels or Washington, flying in, flying out to do these reports. Our analysts really do have dust on their boots.
We go out into the fields. We try to find out exactly what's going on in the field. What are the origin of these crises?
You need to be talking to all the parties, look into their motivations, their calculations, what it would take to bring them to agree.
Based on that information, we try to go back and say, well, here's a political conflict, here's what's going on, and this is what we can do to stop it. The reason I think this works is because the International Crisis Group was created by people who used to work in the international diplomatic community, who have contacts with people at very high levels.
What has been happening to these people?
We turn to John Prendergast,
commander of the John Dewey. The next level, I think, of engagement that the Crisis Group takes beyond what most groups do is we work directly with those that are involved in the solution. So, for example, in Africa, nearly all of the major peace processes that have culminated in some forms of settlement or solution over the last few years, we've been directly involved with those that were trying to make the peace deals.
The work that we've done in Southeast Asia in penetrating and understanding the roots, the sources of terrorist violence has been described by some of the major intelligence agencies as gold standard, better than anyone else is producing.
We have contacts of my own and of other people working for the organization that go back 20 years so that we could look back beyond the immediate bombings, for example, in Bali, and look at the people who were assumed to have been involved in that, look at their backgrounds, and through knowing their backgrounds, we were able to figure out the networks that these people moved in.
I think our reporting, which has been done in extensive detail and has really shown how this group organized and how it operated, that's convinced a great many people within Indonesia, and it's also convinced the government that this is an important challenge, that it has to take it seriously.
It also means that what we can produce is a kind of accounting and a kind of background that even intelligence agencies around the world can't produce.
For the future, I want Crisis Group to be ever more effective, ever more influential. At what we were created to do: be a serious policy player, influence the terms of the debate on these conflict prevention and resolution issues, both publicly and privately, have an impact ultimately on the outcome. Stopping the killing, stopping the dying, stopping the horror and misery of war and terrorist violence.
For example, of course, the situation in Darfur.
Crisis Group presence has included civil society organizations,
usually in the context of Africa.